Hello and welcome to Westwind, an audio podcast about cancer, technology in medicine, and policy issues. I'm host and medical oncologist Dr. Jack West from the City of Hope Comprehensive Cancer Center in the Los Angeles area. You can find Westwind material at BeaconMedIC, one word.com, at iTunes, or just about anywhere you get podcast content. I would just ask that you show your interest and support by subscribing, commenting, sharing by telling friends and colleagues in person and on social media, and rating it however you feel is appropriate. You can also share your ideas and opinions by emailing us at westwindpodcast@gmail.com. I'm very happy to have Dr. Luis Raez with me here today. Luis is the Chief Scientific Officer and Medical Director for the Memorial Cancer Institute and the Director of the Thoracic Oncology Program in the Memorial Healthcare System. He's also Clinical Professor of Medicine at the Herbert Wertheim College of Medicine at Florida International University. Luis, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you very much, Jack, for the invitation. It's a pleasure.
So let's start with just going back to where you're from, where you're born and raised.
Originally, I'm from Peru. I came here when I was 25 years old to study in University of Miami, residency and fellowship training. And then I stayed originally as a faculty at University of Miami. And now I'm the Cancer Center Director for Memorial Healthcare System.
So it's quite an ascension. But growing up, did you have an interest in medicine early on, or did that come later? What kind of...
No, my dad was a doctor, and he was, like us, educator and scientist. So since he was a kid, I remember going, since I was 5 years old, sometimes my dad used to take me to these medical conferences, and so I found some of them terrible boring for a 5-year-old, and some of them were very interesting because you see a lot of very scary pictures,
Yeah.
And but since that time, I was very, interested in medicine, and that's why I decided to become a doctor very early in life.
You went to medical school in Peru, and
Yes.
you came here, you said, at 25. Were you always planning to come to the U.S., or were you thinking about staying in Peru, and was that a difficult decision with your family?
No, I always planned to come to the United States because my dad actually did his training here too, in Kansas, and he decided to come back to Peru. But I wanted to come because of the research. In medical school, I was very active doing clinical research. And I realized that we have many more opportunities in America for research. And in that way, my career will have been more fulfilling coming to America than staying in Peru.
You still have family in Peru?
My mom is still in Peru. I have a brother too.
Okay. And you go back here and there?
Yes, because one of my passions, as the same as you, is to elevate the level of oncology among doctors, nurses in Peru. I'm working very close to the National Cancer Institute now for 6 or 7 years. We educate a lot of young oncologists, residents. We try to bring them to America to do rotations at no cost, sometimes we get grants for them. And frequently we organize with the help of the ISLC or the Oncology Latin American Association or other academic groups, seminars in Peru, or even with ESMO we did one, to try to increase the level of training. We do seminars for research, we do seminars for lung cancer, we do seminars for oncology, and we have been very successful partnering with industry on this.
Do other work outside of Peru in South America, or are you mostly concentrated in Peru?
No, I am the chair for the ISLC, the International Association of Lung Cancer, for all Latin America. We have our Latin American core group inside the ASLC, and our own mandate is to try to develop and increase the knowledge of lung cancer in Latin America. So we are a group of probably 25 or 30 thought opinion leaders from Latin America, and half of them actually we live in the United States, but originally we're from Peru, Brazil, Colombia, and we want to really give back to the region. That is why we organize this group inside the SLC, and we promote a lot of meetings. Our flagship meeting is the LALCA, we call them LALCA, Latin American Lung Cancer Meeting, that we do every year. Sometimes we get like 500 people, 600 people attending. from all over Latin America. This year is going to be in Mexico.
How limited or available are the advances that we're using here in terms of molecular testing and targeted therapies and immunotherapy? Are these generally widely available? Are they extremely limited, or is it extremely variable depending on what country and healthcare system you're in within Latin America?
That's a very interesting question, because Latin America, they always place Latinos as a group. But as you understand, Mexicans are different from Brazilians and from Argentinians. Even the EGFR mutation rate, Argentinians are very, very close to Italians. So the EGFR mutation rate is 15%. Peruvians had 100,000 Chinese immigrants 100 years ago, so the EGFR mutation rate is close to 40%.
Wow.
And then you're talking about Latinos, and then there is a huge difference in EGFR mutation rate. That's why it's very diverse. Latin American is very diverse, and that gives us a lot of work in what we do, because, for example, drug approvals is one country by one country. When you talk about United States, it's only one FDA. In Latin America, you have like 25 FDAs. There are countries in Latin America that it will be hard to believe that they don't even have a tumor registry. They don't even know how many lung cancers they have, because they don't have a registry. It's incredible. In most of the countries, thanks to the industry, we have access to molecular testing and drugs, but it's very, very delayed compared with here. Like sometimes you have a new agent approved here, it may take 2 or 3 years to arrive to Latin America. And a lot of them has to do with the regulations of the countries. Or also, industry also has their own plans, so they may not be ready to launch the drug next day after the FDA approves here in Latin America. They have their own regulations. So the problem is that it takes a while for the new drugs and developments to be transmitted to Latin America. And as you can understand, we also have access issues due to lack of funds and lack of insurance, and the governments cannot provide the drugs in Latin America. They can only provide probably generic chemos, but that's it.
And I think there's certainly some areas where patients are coming huge distances to get to the cancer centers. And, it's not like they're just 30, 40 minutes. I mean, it may be hours.
Yes. For example, in Peru, we were proud that our National Cancer Center is so big that even is the only ECO main partner outside America. We do so much research. We have like more than 16,000 new cancer patients a year. But at the same time, it's sad, because all the cancer care in Peru until 5 years ago was in only one place. So the poor cancer patient had to travel to the capital to have access to radiation. That was very sad. So that's why in many countries, the access, for example, to radiation therapy machines is challenging in Latin America. So that's why this is one of the things that we always evaluate in every country, to see how far is the access, at least to a radiation facility. Surgeons, the same thing. Dedicated lung cancer surgeons are very, very rare in Latin America. Even dedicated medical oncologists for lung cancer are very rare, because it's not a career yet. We have a lot of other diseases and cancers that are more prevalent in Latin America, like cervix or stomach, that lung cancer is not the priority yet, not even for the oncologists.
What led you specifically into oncology among all the fields? I don't know if your father was an oncologist.
My father was a cardiologist, and I love cardiology because it's very challenging. Especially at one point, my dad used to work in intensive care, and I found that very challenging, and to save lives, and that's why oncology is very difficult, because the mortality is very high. But the fascinated me oncology is that that's where probably the research is very important, because we can make a difference. And lung cancer, for example, is more than 85% lethal. That's where we can make a difference. So that's why I chose 25 years ago to do only lung cancer. And my passion is, until the day I die, to make the line and hopefully save more people, or put my brick in the field of building a cure for this disease,
Well, it's been a gratifying decade or more. I mean, compared to when we entered the field a couple of decades ago, people were debating whether it was worth treating advanced lung cancer. And now in some ways, lung cancer is the envy of other areas of oncology, just with so many new advances and tools. It's good. Now, teaching and mentorship have always been a big factor for you. Can you talk about your involvement in Asco's mentorship program and other things that you're doing and why those are so important to you?
I think it's very important that we teach and mentor the next generation, because we are not going to beat cancer in our generation. And that's why I was giving you the example how we try to mentor Latin American young oncologists to be first-line cancer researchers, And we do the same in the United States. All of us have a strong passion for teaching, and we try to identify in my medical school very early. I like to mentor very young people, because they can make a difference, and since they were very young. And I'm lucky that I have even medical students that want to be oncologists, and of course they can be even in training during the 4 or 5, 6 next years, start to publish and help us and participate in congresses and get awards, get grants. So that is why we, through Asco, for example, we have a mentorship program. We used to have also a great mentorship program for minorities that it was sponsored by Lilly Oncology, with Alex Adjei, and it was University of Rochester. And unfortunately, the grant is already finished, but for 5 years, we were able to train, for example, minority oncologists in America, because, minority oncologists are a disproportionately small amount compared. So minorities, we are like 40% of the population. Minority oncologists, I think if we are 10%, is too much. So that's why all of these programs that we have, thanks to the societies, give us the opportunity to fulfill our dreams, to teach and prepare the next generation to be better than us and to make a difference.
It's interesting that there are data out there that actually highlight the importance of seeing and potentially working with physicians who look like or talk like the patients, who may relate better to someone, certainly who speaks the language that they speak, but also who looks like them, and they can help identify with that. What's it like working in Miami, where I've always been struck with how diverse it is, but an amazingly Spanish-speaking community, and I would imagine that you work with a huge number of Latino patients and work in Spanish as a very dominant language in your clinic. What's that like?
Well, for me, it's very fulfilling, because, I love with American people. They're having always nice with me. I love America because they embraced me 25 years ago. Now it's my country, my flag. I'm so grateful for life, and my kids were born and raised here. But also it's very fulfilling for me to work with the Latin community, because it's my own people. Mm-hmm. And we have very interesting problems. For example, the Latin community is very resistant for clinical research. That's why our accruals in the Latin community are always low compared with the Caucasian population. And people think, it's because probably they don't have access. It's not they don't have access. For example, I work for the third largest public healthcare system of the country, Memorial Healthcare System. We have all the technology, clinical research, everything available for our patients, even if the patients don't have insurance, because we have a territory that we cover, and we even have to insure the patients in our territory, Broward County. But the Latin population, for example, even if I speak with them in their own language, in Spanish, they are resistant to be enrolled in clinical trials. They think that we are doing experiments with them. And I don't know where in the history that belief will show up, And I think, for example, it's the same in my country. In Peru, when you were talking before about fake news, it's very painful for me that sometimes the newspapers attack the clinical researchers. And they said, these doctors are doing human experimentation with poor patients. And the newspapers do not understand that we are trying to save lives and make a difference, That's why, I don't know, we have a lot of cultural issues of this type. It's not only the economic situation or the access to care. And that's why even having the privilege to talk the same language is not enough, because we have to break other barriers, that can improve the care.
You have done great work. You've really helped out the nonprofit that I founded, GRACE, Global Resource for Advancing Cancer Education, in initiatives around providing educational materials in Spanish. How much is available right now for Latin American or other Spanish-speaking people around the world in terms of online education? Is that reasonably well supported, or is that a real shortcoming right now and potential explanation for some gaps in how practice is done?
I think there is a lot of need of Spanish-speaking education material online in Latin America. Because, for example, most of the efforts that GRACE have done, even the Adario Foundation, Free to Breathe, I have done videos for Free to Breathe in Spanish, but pretty much everything is located in the United States and is promoted here. We have to find a way to promote that in Latin America. I don't know, if you're a Latin American doctor and you see an American website, even if it's in Spanish, it looks like something far away, Maybe, I don't know, maybe they met you in Asco. I was trying to find a way to gain the support of the local doctors to advertise our material. I think that maybe that would be an easier way to get the patients to look at the websites. I think the challenge is to have the patients looking at the websites, even in Spanish, that we do here. I think we still have this dichotomy, my country is here, and the United States is something far away. In social media, it should not be like that. It's only, as you said, one word.
Yeah. Tell me about the Florida State Society for Asco, what the focus is and your involvement, and now you're the president-elect. So where did that come about?
We are the American Society of Clinical Oncology chapter in Florida. We are one of the 50 chapters that Asco has. We are the largest chapter in America. We have 3,400 members in our society. And we are very diverse because we are medical oncologists, but we have been embracing pharmacists, nurses, nurse practitioners, PAs, and lately we even created a healthcare administration core. So we have administrators now that participate actively in the society. We work very hard in our state to improve cancer care. We want to be, as we said, our motto, the voice of oncology. Anything that happens in oncology, we want to be in the front lines to improve the care. You just gave a good example in the lecture you gave before. How come if we test 100 patients, only 60 get therapy, even with a positive test? That's crazy. That's something that you expect in Latin America because people don't have access to the drug. But if here you have access to the drug, how come that happen? That's why, for example, sometimes talking about molecular testing, the other day we found that one of the payers in Florida had a mistake in the code of approval, and they were denying oral therapy, target therapy for the patient. So as a society, we issue a letter, we met with them, we made them change their reimbursement practices so we can help the patients, And so we participate at the legislature level, we participate at the payer level, we participate strongly at the educational level. We conduct meetings specifically to train nurse practitioners. We have meetings specifically for residents and fellows. And we also, for example, sponsor residents and fellows, not only medical oncologists, pharmacists. We have travel awards. So if they want to go to Asco, any San Antonio, we send to them. We give a small grant of $1,500 so that these people can travel and have the opportunity to go to a national meeting. We also sponsor with $50,000 one of the Asco Young Investigator Awards. We want to, because that's an amazing, I'm in the Cancer Foundation Committee in Asco. It's amazing. I got one award in 2001 and we were 5 people. This year we gave 60 awards of $50,000 each. That was amazing. But what makes me so happy is that you had 60 people now that are young investigators that get, $50,000 is nothing. But this is maybe the next step to prove their data so they can get a $1 million grant. Nobody gives you $1 million from zero. You need to go steps by steps. So a lot of these $50,000 awards help to build the case to become a better scientist. So that's why in Asco we're very active. And I think the reason why we're successful is I say I'm only the president, We have a lot of doctors involved, and everybody has leadership in their own committee, in their own area. And because we have a lot of good people, I think that makes a difference.
Mm-hmm. Your kids are teenagers now, one going off to college. First, where did you meet your wife? Was that here in Miami?
No, my wife is Peruvian too.
Oh, okay.
She's a doctor. She's a professor in pediatrics, infectious disease. My wife takes care of the AIDS clinic in University of Miami for the last 20 years.
Wow, that's also a field that's changed a lot.
Yeah, she's running out of patients.
Yeah.
My wife's going to retire soon, she said, because she doesn't have babies. She doesn't have kids anymore. She started 20 years ago with 300 babies. It was so painful that after I went with her to a couple of advocacy events, I decided maybe to stay home with my kids, because it was very, very painful to see all of these kids, with no parents, no family.
Yeah.
And now, 20 years later, she's a grandma, because all of these kids are already young adults and they have their own kids.
Yeah.
Nobody dies, and nobody borns with HIV anymore, because they do such a good job that, honestly, I think it's a great example how we can cure lung cancer if we get the resources for the government. Because the amount of funds that they got in this time for research is totally disproportionate to the amount of funds that we get, and I think that can make a huge difference.
Well, it's certainly transformed things. I mean, your wife and other AIDS specialists really are kind of curing themselves, or at least controlling the disease to the point that it's just doesn't require the same.
Oh, there are no new patients, what I was telling you. That's why my wife will retire, because there are no new patients. So.
How difficult is it? She's in medicine. Is she understanding of your travel needs, or does she come with you on a lot of these trips, particularly to Latin America?
I don't know. I think it's easier for a doctor to marry a doctor, or for a nurse to marry a doctor, or vice versa, marry another nurse, because they understand what you do, no?
Yeah.
And that makes things easy. And I travel a lot for research. Fortunately, I guess, my wife is not a clinical researcher. She's more devoted to advocacy. And so she has a team. In her team, there are other researchers like me that do the traveling, whatever. She's more based on clinical care, performance improvement. So she devotes all of her expertise on that, so she doesn't have to travel.
Yeah.
It has been perfect for us, because we have been always at home raising our kids, and when we have to travel, she doesn't have to do it. But we love to travel, so our kids have visited more than 30 countries, so because we always find time to take a short vacation or go to somewhere. I think that opens the mind. I think that's why I came to America. Remember, at 5-year-old, my dad bring me to the United States. Everybody told him that's a waste of money. Why you bring a 5-year-old to the United States? And he said, no, he's going to learn. I still have memories when I was 5-year-old, walking that bridge that is across this window with my dad. I will never forget that, because it caused me such a strong impact and opened my eyes that the world is much bigger than where I used to live. And I think that's very important for the education. That's what we do with our trainees in Latin America. Maybe if they only have opportunity to come here for 1 month, or at least they have the opportunity to take a famous professor like Fred Hirsch to Peru, and they have the opportunity to have dinner with him and get a class from him. We took Rolf Stachel to Peru, a lot of famous people. That opens the mind of the person. Say, this is a much bigger world. I want to be like this guy. I want to make a difference in society. I think that's very important, to expose you to the world.
You have 2 teenage kids, one going off to college. First, do they identify very strongly with their Peruvian history, or are they thoroughly American now?
At the beginning, they used to cheer the American soccer team. In Latin America, we're soccer fans. Now they cheer the Peruvian soccer team. I am the one that cheered the American soccer team. I'm so happy that the women won, Yeah. My kids don't watch the American soccer team. I think, you guys are Americans. What happened is they have spent so much time in Peru. And, Peru is the underdog.
Yeah.
It's not as big as America. So they have more solidarity, I think, with Peru. that America for games. That's why they identify a lot like Peruvians.
Okay. And are they interested in medicine? I mean, they have two parents who are physicians, and it led you into that path. Do they see it and also want to do this, or do they see what you do and want to not do this?
What happened is that's a very difficult topic because, all the movies, you have two strong, successful parents in medicine. There is a danger that you're going to put pressure on them. And we didn't want to do that. You don't want to put pressure on your kids because, they have to be better than the parents. So I never particularly put pressure for medicine. I never mentioned medicine. I never offered to anything. And by themselves, I think they're moving forward in that direction, And my son is going to University of Miami already to biological sciences college, but he was his choice.
Yeah.
Because he's very smart, he's very strong. I told him you can be maybe a successful lawyer, you can work for an international bank. And at the beginning he said, yes, I'll try that. And then he applied to biological sciences. So I feel very happy that it's their decision. I didn't put pressure on them. I didn't get upset when they said, if my kids say they want to be lawyers, I won't be upset. You have to look what's better for them. You cannot be so selfish that,
Well, in our field, there is no family business to hand off to them, that's for sure. What do you prioritize for your next couple of decades? I mean, you're involved in all sorts of things, and you're already, at a high level locally and leading a lot of work in Asco and also with IASLC. So where do you want to go from here? You have all these choices of what you could do with limited time.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think I am very lucky that I work for a great healthcare system. I said the Memorial Healthcare System is a public healthcare system, is the third largest healthcare system in America that is public. So I get a lot of support from our institution because our mandate is really take care of people. We are a very profitable healthcare system. That's very weird to hear from a public institution. But we are very successful for 50 years. So we even invest our own resources, our own revenue in improve quality. We're in the top of the line for OCM, healthcare outcomes, quality. Our 6 hospitals are A. The only healthcare system with, I think, all the A hospitals is ours. So that's why in my own job, I have a lot of support. And I spend more my time trying to focus on education and research. I am lucky that the administration part, I get support because I have vice presidents, directors, I have a lot of people so I don't have to invest a lot of time on that, despite the fact I'm the cancer center director, Yeah, and that's why I think I'm very lucky that even beginning from my own institution, I have been free to be able to be president of Asco, chair the ISLC Latin America, and things like that. My goal is to find more people like me that is interesting. So we multiply efforts. Like you. I'll help you, you help me, so hopefully we create something better. I have a partnership with eCancer. We do a lot of education videos. Even in Portuguese we did because I have Portuguese faculty. So we have been able to do videos for Brazil. In Latin America, we're trying to do more podcasts and webinars in different languages. So that's why I'm always looking for leaders that can work with me and we can help each other and potentiate each other. Or mentees. Some of our mentees are so smart that they are better than us, You are going to interview, for example, Gilberto Lopez. Gilberto Lopez, I am 5 or 6 years ahead of him, and he was our mentee in University of Miami. And I was happy that we identified him at a very young age. Before he started residency, he already knew that he wanted oncology. He spent time with us. So he was already learning even before to start his training in oncology because he was rotating with us. He was spending time in the oncology world, time in the research, time going to the conference. And all of these bright people, can help us or maybe do better things than we do,
That's great. One last question. You know Miami well. It's a great city to visit. What's a favorite restaurant that would be worth a try if we're here?
That's a very difficult question because, I'm Peruvian.
Okay.
So I'm totally biased. We believe that Peruvian food is amazing, That's why I will send you to a Peruvian restaurant, Ceviche 105. But, Miami is great. They have, depends on, if you like Thai food, because we are very diverse.
Yeah.
You can have Brazilian churrasco, you can have a Cuban restaurant, you can have a nice Japanese place. So that's why, as a Peruvian, I'll send everybody to Ceviche 105. We also are lucky that, one of the best chefs of the world is Gaston Acurio from Peru. He has his own restaurant in the Mandarin Oriental here. But of course, the guy is not here. So that's why, if he will be here, I will for sure send you. Because in Peru, his flagship restaurant is number 15 in the world. So that's why it's a very well-known chef. So.
Excellent. Well, a lot of options there. Well, Luis, thanks so much for taking the time. Great talking to you.
Thank you very much, Jack.
Thanks for listening. The West Wind Podcast is a Beacon Medical Interchange production with sound engineering and distribution by Mark Lindsay of Talking Speaker. We hope you'll be motivated to subscribe, whether at BeaconMedIC.com, through iTunes, or through another podcast service. Please also rate it, and I hope you'll be inclined to tell friends and colleagues in real life and on social media. We're always happy to get your suggestions and other input at westwindpodcast@gmail.com. Talk to you again soon.